Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Okay, hello there. Hi. Why is she laughing? She's laughing because we're off to a bumpy start here, trying to get somebody on the phone and coming up with an invalid extension or something. We will continue. This is a program that's going to be filled with guests, although at the rate we're going, it might not be. The topic of this first half hour, if we can do it, is going to be the subject of marriage equality. Now, what that means, obviously, in our day and age, is the right of two people of the same sex to be able to marry. This was considered an outrageous idea, I would guess, just 10 years ago. And it is no longer an outrageous idea. It is an idea that has clearly found a great deal of traction in courtrooms, at the Supreme Court of the United States, in state legislatures, and at the grassroots level. On the line with us is Mary Catherine Roper, who is a senior staff attorney for the ACLU of Pennsylvania. And she is Mary Catherine. You're involved in the ACLU's federal lawsuit that was filed this summer?
Yes, that's right. I'm one of the counsel in the suit.
Okay, and the suit is filed on behalf of a couple, a number of couples. How is it structured? And how did it come about?
We have at this point 23 clients. They are 11 couples.
Okay.
One recent widow.
Oh.
And 2 teenage children of one of the couples.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. And they're all suing the state of Pennsylvania for exactly what?
Well, just to be technical for a minute, something that probably doesn't matter. We're not suing the state. We are suing various officials in the Commonwealth, the Secretary of Health, Secretary of Taxation, various other officials, because that's how you bring a suit in federal court. But so our clients are the couples are, some of them are married in other states and want their marriages recognized here in Pennsylvania. Some of them are not married and would like to get married here in Pennsylvania. So basically, the suit is simply to get recognition for marriages for same-sex couples, whether they are already married, whether they want to marry. It's really to completely overturn the marriage ban here.
Okay. Now, I'm confused because I thought with the great win that the ACLU had at the Supreme Court in U.S. versus Windsor, that the court in that case turned around and said if a couple is married in, let's say, in New York, which allows gay marriage, that the state that they reside in, such as Pennsylvania, does have to acknowledge that marriage. I'm obviously incorrect.
So no, that wasn't at stake in Windsor. In the Windsor case, Edie Windsor was married in Canada, and she lived with her partner and her wife, actually, in New York, which did recognize the marriage. So she didn't have a problem of her home state not recognizing her marriage.
Oh,
her problem was that the federal government wouldn't recognize her marriage. And so the ruling in United States versus Windsor was that the United States government must recognize marriages that the states recognize. But it didn't get to the other question. Do states have to recognize each other's marriages?
Oh, wow. We'll see how, thank you for, or not thank you for disabusing me of my... I thought
no, I'm sorry. We didn't win yet. We're still working on that one.
Dang it. Okay, so if you are married in any of the states, and by the way, those states are growing as we speak. Hawaii just becoming, I believe, yesterday are you keeping count, Mary Catherine?
Yes. Yes. Hawaii is now the 16th state, plus the District of Columbia, to recognize the freedom to marry for same-sex couples.
How much, that begs the question of when there's clearly some kind of a domino effect, this thing's got momentum. It used to be once every maybe 7-8 months another state might recognize it, but now it seems, I think just in the last week we've had Illinois and then Hawaii. Does the court, any court, does the court feel the pressure of that when they take on a case such as this?
Yeah. And I don't know that you'd call it pressure, because the courts sort of famously don't feel themselves pressured generally by public opinion because they have a different job. But it does matter, because when they're trying to figure out whether there's some good reason to deny the right to marry to same-sex couples, the fact that it's recognized in so many other states sort of makes it hard to argue that Pennsylvania has some really special interest in discriminating against people.
Which becomes a pretty difficult thing to contend.
We think so, obviously. We don't think that Pennsylvania has a good reason for discriminating against these couples, and we hope and expect to prove that in court.
Okay, so what is at stake here is essentially what? The constitutionality of our Defense of Marriage Act in the state? Exactly.
Okay. That's the ruling we've asked for, is to say that Pennsylvania's ban on marriage is not constitutional under the federal Constitution. That happens to be the arguments that we have made. There are other lawsuits that have been brought making some different arguments. But you say, what's the goal? The goal is freedom to marry for everybody across the board.
Well, that's the kind of thing that would get Rick Santorum talking about men and dogs.
Yeah, I understand. None of our clients are canine.
Okay, but okay. So you're just saying that there's no reason. I'm not going to ask you to argue the state's case, but it is remarkable that they continue to fight this so strenuously. What's at stake for these 21 clients of the ACLU in this case?
Or
23 that you said.
23 now. 23. We just recently added another couple.
Yeah.
Everything that marriage is about, right? Marriage is about recognition and respect, but it's also about security for you as a couple, or security for your children. In Pennsylvania, we don't have any statewide protections for people in lesbian and gay relationships. You can be denied the right to see your spouse in the hospital. You can, I mean, there are all kinds of, tax and other implications, but, when it comes down to it, marriage controls, the laws around marriage control so many things about our lives and just put our clients so much more at risk than the people down the street that they are just otherwise indistinguishable from.
Right. And in terms of the children, as you said, two of the plaintiffs now are teenage children of a same-sex couple. What would their standing be? I mean, how does that impact a child?
They're sick of being, to use a rather old-fashioned term, illegitimate kids, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they are children of a loving and stable relationship that if they were children of a married heterosexual couple, they'd have all kinds of protections with respect to inheritance and both parents being able to take care of them in an emergency and all that kind of stuff. But the real deal for them at this age is that their family is as good as anybody's family, and they're really sick of the state saying that it's not.
Wow. Yeah. At what point is this case? I know in the so-called well-oiled wheels of justice are often not that at all. So the case was filed in July of this year. So at what point do you end up in a courtroom?
So the case was filed in July. The first thing that the defendants have the opportunity to do is to say that we don't belong in court at all. That's called a motion to dismiss. And all of the defendants in our suit have, in fact, filed motions to dismiss. The judge has promised us, this is assigned to Judge Jones in the Middle District of Pennsylvania, federal court in the Middle District in Harrisburg. He has promised us that he's going to rule on those motions to dismiss very quickly. We would expect this week or early next week. And as long as the case isn't dismissed, his view and our view is that it should proceed very quickly. We hope and plan to be having a trial on this case in the spring or summer.
Okay, now. Okay, so it will take that. So that's like a year from the time that you file it.
To get a final decision,
yeah. We're talking about 2014. And then, let's say, and let's hope, you prevail, the ACLU prevails. Is that it, or does the state, we assume, immediately appeal to the Supreme Court, thus keeping the status quo for a bit?
Well, so first of all, the appeal doesn't go to the Supreme Court. The courts are much slower than that.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot a level, right.
Yeah, the first level of appeal, and we certainly expect that the state would probably appeal if we win. That's their decision to make, but that's sort of what we expect. So the first level of appeal would be to the Court of Appeals, Federal Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit, which is the court that has jurisdiction over Pennsylvania. That court would take briefing, no new trial, but would take briefing and argument and make a decision. That decision could be reviewed by the United States Supreme Court, but right. That's kind of a ways off to see what's going to happen there.
Well, there's so many of these cases now in so many states. At one point, it would seem the Supreme Court is going to end up with one or a bundle of them. Isn't that the case?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Yeah. I mean, the United States versus Windsor left a big issue undecided. And eventually that issue is going to be back in front of the United States Supreme Court. And it may well be us, or it may be another case.
How much do you, when deciding to bring a case, look at the look at who sits on these courts. And do you sometimes think this is not a good time because the makeup of the court does not seem to be beneficial to us? We need to sit and wait. Does that ever come into the picture?
I mean, it's certainly something that we would think about because, no lawyer just, launches blindly into a case that's this important. But, I have to say that at this point, with more and more states recognizing marriage, it's sort of become an inevitability. And we need this issue decided. The situation we have now is incredibly confusing, where a couple that's married will have some benefits but not other benefits, be subject to have to file different kinds of tax returns in their own state than they file with the federal government. Their employer has to give them different kinds of benefits depending on whether they are state-required benefits or federal-required benefits. Right now, we're in a state of confusion that cannot last. Ready or not, I think the Supreme Court's going to have to sort this out pretty soon.
Well, that's good to hear. There was something when you said we're in a state of confusion. I often think that about Pennsylvania, actually. A state of confusion. I wish you all the best, Mary Catherine, and the ACLU in this regard, and on behalf of all of these our neighbors and fellow residents of the Commonwealth. And I appreciate your efforts very much. Thank you. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Well, thanks for your support, Lynn.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's Mary Catherine Roper of the ACLU PA. What we're going to do is take a quick break, and we're going to return with either one or both of a couple from our area who care very, very much about the outcome of this case, since they have lived as a wife and wife for 13 years, and they are the parents of 2 children, and yet they live in a state of some level of anxiety and definitely inequality. So, quick break, and we'll be back.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
Just in time for the holidays, Little's Shoes is your UGG headquarters. Little's has the largest selection of UGGs for men, women, and children to stay warm with shearling-lined boots, shoes, and slippers. Don't forget to get your hats, gloves, scarves, and more. Bring the entire family to view one of the largest in-store UGG shops in the U.S. All available at Little's Shoes, Pittsburgh's largest family shoe store. Forbes Avenue in Squirrel Hill or littleshoes.com.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we've got a range of pep talkers standing by. Call 1-877-38-YOUR-GED or visit yourged.org and find free classes in your area. GED is a registered trademark of the American Council on Education. Brought to you by Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-8381 or email lynn@pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
All right. Whoops. I don't.
Tangled.
We're tangled, and there we go. I want to now introduce Dawn Plummer and Diana Pulson. Hi, guys. Are you there?
We're here. Yeah.
Okay. I got both of you. Thank you so very much. So just give it. You are not. Are you or are you not? It sounds like have you been or have you ever? Are you or are you not parties to this the lawsuit that the ACLU has filed in federal court?
Yes, we are.
Oh, you are. You are one of the 22 of the 23 parties to the
That's right.
To the suit. What? Okay. What determination did you make as a couple to do this, to actually appeal for your right to marry in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
Well, that's a really good question. One of the things that I always think about is a conversation that I had with our oldest son, who's now 5. He was, about a year ago, he was 4 at the time, and I guess in the preschool set, they were talking a lot about getting married. And so, he was asking questions to us, wondering if we were married, and, it's such a simple question, but it was actually, hard to explain that, we actually did have a ceremony where we professed our love to each other in front of our friends and family, but the state that we live in doesn't recognize that, and so he really thought that was unfair. And I remember one of the things he said was, maybe we could go to the lawmaker's house and bring a sign and say that we think that 2 women or 2 men should be able to get married, so my moms can get married. Oh. And that really stuck with me. And so, when we had the opportunity to be a part of the case, we thought, well, this is actually the perfect opportunity. And in July, we actually did stand as a family in the lawmaker's house, with our 2 sons. And, I think it's just an important process to be a part of. So yeah.
As a parent to your children, this is a process to be involved in. But what I'm wondering, so he's sounds like a wonderful kid. He's already though dealing with. I'm sure most of his preschool friends probably, if they have 2 parents. I guess the odds are that they're one of each gender. So how has he dealt with that?
It's really funny. I mean, obviously since he was born, this is the family that he knows of. And I remember, he was a real early talker. And I remember, we used to live in Brooklyn, and Dawn was grocery shopping with him. And, the woman who was checking them out at the checkout said, he said something about, oh, my mama's at home, and she was like, well, isn't that your mama right there? And he was like, no, that's my mommy. My mama's at home. I have 2 moms, so I think, it's just part of his reality, and sure. It's the same with his friends, if people are talking about, asking him about his dad, he says, oh, I don't have a dad, I have 2 moms, and
it's very
from what we've gathered, all of his friends seem to, that just seems to kind of make sense
to them.
Right. It doesn't seem like a huge deal at this point.
Right. It's matter of fact to them. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So, what is in terms of the legalities? How do you feel vulnerable as a couple and as parents as a result of the state's refusal to allow you to marry?
I think, this is Dawn, I think first and foremost, I mean, no one ever wants to think about what would happen if something happened to one or the other of you. But at this point, because we have to go through a process of second parent adoption, and that requires, legal counsel and various, financial things that we're sort of preparing for. But at this point, our second son, whose first birthday was just yesterday, he has no legal relation to me, his mom. Diana gave birth to him, and we haven't been able to do the second parent adoption yet. And so if anything happened to Diana, we would be in a very vulnerable situation in terms of you would technically
not be a mother to them.
Legally.
Legally.
Even though I've raised him since the moment he was
legally, so
conceived, even that, legally. So legally, we have no relationship.
Okay.
And also, if something happened to one or the other of us, we would have to pay, the inheritance taxes. We actually just got a update from our tax person that in 2012, if we would have been able to file jointly, as married, we would have saved nearly $2,000 as a family, which, in these times, in this economy, $2,000 is a significant amount of money. That there's no reason, our family looks the way it looks. It'll look the same if we're married or not married, but we would have saved a significant amount of money. There's just regular kind of indignities that happen. We're frequently we have to check, that we're single in a box, even despite, the over decade that we've spent together, and the fact that we have a home and a family, and we still have to say that, legally we're single. That kind of gets me every time.
So I mean, like you're filling out a thing at the doctor's office and it says marital status, and you can't say married because you're not legally married.
That's right. Or if we're enrolling our oldest son in kindergarten, the same thing.
And so those are every day or, constant.
Yeah, those are kind of regular occurrences. I mean, there's also the situation where when we went out on the private market to find health insurance, I mean, how this conversation about health insurance right now is obviously a big one. And for us, it's really confusing. We don't know where we stand on various things. When we lived in New York, we were domestic partners. We moved to Pennsylvania. We didn't even have that. And when we went out to get health insurance, I remember we were sitting in a health insurance office where we were trying to find health insurance for our family, and they said, "Oh, well, we don't provide family insurance for you." If you drop down the female box on the health insurance website, there's no other female box that will drop down. It's either male and female or nothing, and so we have to have individual health insurance, which I think is just.
Is also
just really frustrating, and
also
it
a financial
has financial
burden.
implications.
Right.
As well.
So there's these financial implications and burdens, and one can understand why in the lawsuit the ACLU is pointing at the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, which is the Equal Protection Clause. And these arguments have been successful in a lot of other courtrooms. So are you feeling like this is going to have a good result?
I think it has to have a good result. I mean, I was talking to Diana earlier, and we were saying, whether or not we're married, we're here. We live in our house. We send our kids to school. Our lives aren't going to change. We're going to continue to be the family we are. And so, to me, it's just a matter of time until that's recognized. I think, more and more people understand us as not that much different. I mean, there are quirks and there are things that are different, but, everybody's different. And so, the more that people have access to understanding, that our family is just like any other family. We love our kids. We go to work, this kind of stuff.
So it occurs to me that the barriers that you bump into are not so much out there in the world with your neighbors, with your son's playmates and their parents, but it's with institutions. It's with insurance companies, and you bump into this that the world that you live in seems to be okay with you and your family. Do you think?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, obviously, there's plenty of people out there who would say that our kid is damaged for some reason, and but people live their lives in all kinds of ways, and I think that's true. That for us anyway, we've been fortunate that those things we bump up against are institutions. We have a very supportive community of family and friends that have otherwise treated us like anybody else.
Well, I wish you two all the best. Am I going to see your family's picture if I go to the Faces of Equality photo exhibit?
Yes, you'll see a picture that was taken about a week or so after the birth of our son last year. It's a picture taken on our front porch.
Oh, wonderful. Well, this gives me an opportunity to tell my audience that there is a just wonderful exhibit at Mendelssohn Gallery in Shadyside on Ellsworth Avenue. And the benefit opening reception is tomorrow from... are you going to be there? No?
Yeah, this is Diana. I'll be there. Dawn
Okay.
is going to be out of town, and I might bring, our youngest.
Oh, good. I
son.
hope so. I'd love to meet the little 1-year-old guy.
Yeah, okay, cool.
6:30 to 8:30. That's tomorrow. And that benefits, not surprisingly, the ACLU. These are photos taken by professional and amateur photographers in the area of our friends and neighbors who are in long-term loving relationships, who would marry if they could marry but are prevented from marrying. And you look at these portraits of these couples, male and female, many with children, and it's if that doesn't tell the story, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. I think the pictures in this exhibit are worth 1,000,000 words, and I thank you for stepping out there in so many ways. And it sounds like your 5-year-old is a little activist like you too. That's his inclination, and so he's going to be proud of you if he isn't all. I'm sure he's proud of you now. But I wish you all the best, and I'll hope to see you on Thursday, as well as many of you in the audience. Please come and support this obviously important and moral cause. Okay? Thank you, guys.
Thanks
Dawn,
so much.
Diana, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. Bye. Okay, really, I hope to see you all there. Mendelssohn Gallery, Ellsworth Avenue, Thursday, 6:30 to 8:30. I'm actually one of the, I think, sort of hosts of it. Not really host, but my name's on the invitation for some reason. Please come. The ACLU needs support. Believe me, needs support. As any controversial agency doing the kind of wondrous work it does, inevitably does need support, moral and monetary. Okay? So, Faces of, what are we calling it? The Faces of Equality. Mendelssohn Gallery tomorrow night. See you there.
With Lynn Cullen Live.
Go to the all-new BergBargains.com for great deals on gift cards from your favorite local restaurants, bars, museums, attractions, and shows. Log on now for great deals from Ibiza, Atria's, Monticello's, the Pittsburgh Opera, and City Theater. The all-new BergBargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains, BergBargains.com.
This is the sound of a flat-screen television hurled off a building. Now the new bike your kid wants. These are the things you could have, all cast into oblivion. Because when you throw away money on wasted electricity, you throw away everything you could have bought with it. Use Energy Star light bulbs and appliances, and you could save hundreds of dollars a year. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Energy and the Ad Council.
Download the CP Haps app to find out what's happening in Pittsburgh. It's the fun and free app that puts the most popular events at your fingertips. Text events to 77948 to download now. Available on the App Store and Google Play. Brought to you by Pittsburgh City Paper.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
Wow! And another one. Come on in. It's been a crazy morning. I want to introduce to you a dear friend and an extraordinary woman in so many ways, but now the author of a book. In one era. You say era or era? Era works better in this.
Era because it's a play on
I know it's a play on words, but without the play on words, would you say era or era?
Probably era.
Okay. In one era and out the other. Essays on Contemporary Life. This is Patricia Prattis Jennings. Many of you already recognize the name and or her face because she's a big deal here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She is the now retired keyboardist of the Pittsburgh Symphony, and she has been known for her observational writing that appeared in the Post-Gazette for years, and is some of which is in here, as well as other ponderings that she puts out on her blog, Pat's ponderings. This woman is just indefatigable. I have to tell you, I said retired. Have you ever been busier?
Not that I have been in the last 2 weeks since the books started arriving.
Yeah, the books. Well, I want to talk to you because the books, you know what, I'll tell you, the wonderful thing about this book, since we now have famously short attention spans, is that it's just made up of these little, many of them just like 2-3 pages long.
A friend described them as vignettes. Yeah. And it is a variety. It's a jumble. It's a buffet.
A buffet. A veritable cornucopia.
That was a possible title at one point.
But what's wonderful is that when you read through it, you feel very comfortable with you. Obviously, they're your observations, so you're very much central to the book. I might not agree with some of your observations.
That's all right.
But I feel like I'm in a sort of a conversation with a friend. Is that sort of...
Well, that's good, because when I first started writing long ago, I decided to sit down and begin to write as if I were writing a letter to a friend. And I have been told that people feel as if my writing is sort of the way I talk.
True.
The way I am, and that's good. I wouldn't want to be anybody else.
No, and we won't get into your letter writing. This is a woman who writes. You know what? That you still do.
Not as.
Oh, you fire off emails now.
Not as much, but in my little speech that I'm giving at these book signings, I say that I really did start writing letters, and one of the first ones was to WQED-TV during a newspaper strike, I guess in the 60s. Wow. And the reporter who was reading the cultural events for the weekend, when he got to the Pittsburgh Symphony, said, "Oh, well, nobody cares about the symphony anyway." Well, I shot off a letter to him.
Wait, someone from QED said that?
Yes.
That's even more egregious.
Yes. So I wrote this letter, and of course I gave a copy of it to our personnel manager, who stood up and read it in front of the orchestra. And my colleagues were stunned.
That you could write?
Yes. You mean, did you really write that letter? And I had. And it made me realize that when you write, you can push your anxieties out of the way. That in a one-on-one may still be there and may be preventing you from expressing yourself the way you would on paper. So that was a good lesson for me. And I did go through such a period of letter writing that I actually considered at one time putting together a book called A Woman of Letters, going through these letters that I have in...
I have letters from you.
Yeah.
I meant to bring one that I came upon the other day. And this is before we really knew each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sent me letters.
I sent you fan letters.
Which I never responded to. Which is a whole other story, right?
Let's leave that story alone.
Oh, God, she doesn't like that story. It's so horrible. Okay, so, here's some of what you learned from me. You can't stand people getting tattoos. You, in late age, found out that you love pedicures. You have something called a virtue fund.
Yes.
Explain that.
Well, one day when I was on my way home from a rehearsal, I thought that I would stop at a Chinese restaurant in Bloomfield to get a little Chinese lunch. And then by the time I got to Bloomfield, I thought, oh, do I feel like looking for a parking space and waiting for my food? And I thought, why don't I just go home and make myself a tuna salad sandwich?
There you go.
And I did, and I took the money that I would have spent on the Chinese lunch and put it in an envelope. And that was the beginning of the Virtue Fund. I drew a little stick lady with a halo and wrote Virtue Fund. And from then on, when there was money that I thought I would be spending but didn't spend, I would put it in the virtue fund. If I happened to find a parking meter that was already full of money, I could put that money in the virtue fund.
Well, that doesn't quite. I wouldn't let you put that money in the virtue fund.
But it's money.
Because it had nothing to do with, I mean, it wasn't virtuous like you saying, no, I will forego somebody else making my lunch. I will go home and labor and make my own lunch. That's just luck. Bumping into a...
Well, you could call it a luck fund if you prefer. It was my luck fund.
Okay, but so that adds up, huh?
Yes, it does. And then you can go out to dinner, or you can take trips, or you can, just any money that's sort of a windfall.
So you do that all the time?
Well, I did it for a long time, and then I stopped. And then about a year or so ago, I decided to start doing my own hair more often, because I was going to the salon every week. And I found I could do a decent job. I mean, at my age, I don't have to look that great.
No, you do. That's serious money, hair.
Yeah, it was $28 every time.
What do you mean $28? Where do you get your hair done for $28?
Up Murray Avenue.
Murray Avenue. But is that a cut and a...
No. Just a shampoo.
I see.
Just a shampoo and blow dry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right.
So it was just money that was unexpected or that wasn't spent. And because of the nature of the money, I didn't miss the money. So it just went in its little envelope. And I did start doing it again, or if we don't go out to dinner when we were planning to, or if I get a little check from the insurance company as a safe driver, I could put that into the virtue fund. And of course, this isn't in the book, but I have a recent writing about when I fell out of my car a few weeks ago.
That begs a follow-up question. You fell out of your
Yes,
car.
I did.
Not while it was moving.
Well, it was moving a little bit. I was on a side street parallel to Carson and parked and started to get out of the car, opened the door, and I hear ding, 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 ding. Well, I had forgotten to put the car in park.
Well,
so as I tried to reach the gear shift, gravity had a different idea.
And oh my gosh.
And of course it's an SUV, so it was a little further than falling out of a sedan. And I fell on my arthritic hip, therefore probably moving up my hip replacement surgery that'll be coming someday, not too long from now. And it was a funny morning because I had already gotten a ticket on Carson Street because I had to go to the John and ran into the Burger King and didn't notice there was a meter. And when I came out, the lady had issued the ticket. I just went over to her and I patted her on the shoulder and said, "Lady, I had to go so bad. It was worth $20."
That was a $20 P without a doubt, right?
And when I get a ticket in the city, and of course I no longer live in the city.
Yes.
But I don't mind contributing. I know the city needs money.
Yeah.
And that money could go to the city's crack pothole repairing team.
Crack pot. I thought you were going to say that this could go to the city's crack pots. You said, what is a crack pothole? Crack pothole. Yes, I got you now.
Pothole repairing team. Or just, something that the city needs. The city can't exist with all these people who don't want government. I don't know how, or to pay taxes. I don't know how they expect
anything to work.
If they don't.
Well, they don't think that far.
Or pay their parking tickets.
No, that's right. Yeah. All suburbanites should be like you. So, one of the pieces is exactly the question that anybody would ask you. I mean, you have had an illustrious career in the world of music, classical music. You have, you and Andre Previn had a CD?
No, but we performed together as a duo.
Yeah. So you were one of the, first African Americans? One of the first or the first? One of the first.
One of the first in an major American symphony orchestra. But I was with the orchestra for 40 years.
Yeah, but she can play the piano. So here's...
And it was just time to go and do something else.
I understand. Well, see, you're a woman of many talents. But so people say, well, you write about all this stuff, but you don't write about... Why wouldn't you write about music?
There are 4 articles in the book or 4 chapters that deal with music. But I'm interested in all kinds of other things. I'm a person going to the supermarket and dining out and cooking and keeping house and reacting to
everything.
The Obama election. I mean, one of my favorite pieces in the book is called Working the Phones. And I wrote it the night before Obama was elected in 2008. And I had just wandered into an election headquarters in a part of town that one might not expect to find such a busy...
Obama headquarters.
Mount Lebanon.
Yeah.
There I was in Mount Lebanon, and there were all these young people from all over the country. People were bringing them food, bringing them pizza, and they were so earnest in their mission. And all I could do was make some phone calls and just think how wonderful it was there in Mount Lebanon. And I don't really mean to cast aspersions on
You
Mount
know why
Lebanon.
you shouldn't? Because in this last election, the one that just, I guess Mount Lebanon elected all of their, I don't know if they call them city council people or whatever they call them, all 6 people elected.
Were Democrats.
Yep. So Mount Lebanon ain't what it used to be.
Well, I think things are changing. Of course, I live in Roslyn Farms, and things are changing there a little bit, too. Well, the world
Democrats are coming. The Democrats are coming. Those liberals are, like, fanning out. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. That's true. So here's one of the fun... To me, this is so you. There's actually a piece in here called... This is so Pat. The Noble Schwa. First of all, do you remember what a schwa is? It's such a weird word. SCHWA, and I learned from reading your piece that it actually comes from the Hebrew, which I didn't know, but schwa. Do you know what it is, anybody? SCHWA. The schwa is something that this
person.
I was going to put an adjective before person. This very odd woman is like just passionate about. What's a schwa?
Well, first of all, I begin the chapter by explaining the following, although a departure in mood from the essays that surround it, is a tribute to one of my favorite characteristics of human speech.
The noble schwa.
All the schwa is the upside-down E that you see in dictionaries that helps you pronounce words.
Okay, so it doesn't help anyone if they don't know when they see the upside-down E what the hell they're supposed, what that sounds like.
Unstressed.
It's a
Yeah, it's an unstressed vowel. It's a grunt, like when you say mother.
That's a schwa.
The E is a schwa.
No, the O is a schwa.
No.
Mother.
Mother. The vowel in the is a schwa.
Well, what's the That's not a schwa?
No, that's a vowel sound. That's a flat U sound. Mother, as in
I
puppy.
can tell. I don't want to go here with you.
But if you say vicissitudes.
What? If you try to say it. If you say vicissitudes.
There are a couple of schwas in vicissitudes.
I'm feeling vicissitudes now. Oh, my gosh. Spell it.
VISCISSITUDES.
I won't even pretend to say that sounded very right.
That sounded good, didn't it?
Gee whiz.
Yeah, I'm a pretty decent speller. And of
You're
course,
a smart cookie.
Spell check makes us lazy, just like GPS makes us lazy.
So you tell us here that your father, and I have to, thought you should have a paper route when you were at a young age, and many of you maybe did have paper routes, but Pat's father, I mean, paper was in newspapers was your lifeblood because your dad was
the editor of the Pittsburgh Courier, which is mentioned too many times in this book.
No, it's not.
But these pieces were written at some distance from each other.
And at the time her father was the editor of the Pittsburgh Courier, it was the absolute, along with, was the Chicago Defender considered equal?
They were up there.
These were the
largest circulated
national newspapers. It was huge, huge. And you'd work there a lot, and then he thought you should have a paper route. But what killed me is you said, so your paper route consisted of your father driving you around your route in his Lincoln.
Yeah.
That's not a paper route. You're supposed to do it yourself.
And it's supposed to be a boy, too.
A boy on a bike throwing things.
But I was this young lady with pigtails driving around, being driven around by my father in his Lincoln to my customers who paid me faithfully. And as I say in the piece, that the money that, you see, he was trying to teach me the value of saving money.
Oh. Well, so he would, that's where the Virtue Fund comes from then.
Yeah.
From your dad.
And so my first Steinway piano was partially paid for by money that I made delivering papers in my father's Lincoln. And of course, I'm sure this all seemed very strange to people. But you know, Lynn, despite my father's position, whatever, I have always felt very comfortable around all kinds of people. I know you do. Yeah, and I think that's a quality about myself that I appreciate.
Well, it's so clear when you read the book. I was reading. I was many of these I've seen before, but I was looking through it again last night, and there's one where she's sitting. You're sitting somewhere. I wish I could remember where, and you strike up conversations. And your husband's like this, too. With absolutely everybody and anybody. They make friends. They go out for 2 minutes, and they come back with 10 new friends. I mean...
Was this the one in Rome when I met the Swedish girl?
Yes.
The Japanese...
The Japanese girl from Copenhagen.
That worked in Copenhagen. And I was in Rome looking to replace my lost raincoat, and I sat down in an Italian cafe to rest, and we started talking and ended up having dinner together at a Chinese restaurant in Rome.
And you thought, what are the odds that this, me from Pittsburgh bumping, African American from Pittsburgh bumps into this, Japanese from Copenhagen, Denmark, and we meet
dinner in a Chinese restaurant in Rome.
You try to hang on to those friendships. Your letter writing kicks in then, so you write letters, but these kinds of friendships that you make, you've learned to acknowledge that they're hard to hang on to.
Well, especially then, because we didn't have email yet.
Right.
Now you can hang on to a new friend from Australia.
Do you have a new friend in Australia?
Well, actually, yeah.
Yeah. When did you find that one?
On
yesterday?
our some cruise or trip to Eastern Canada last summer.
Oh, and speaking of that, is that the one? Well, there's something in here about
life in a small space.
Life in a small space. I so loved. Mostly, what I loved about it was your last line when you talked about sleeping. I don't know if you. Those of you who've never had the experience, I recommend it. Sleeping on a train in a berth, in your own little room on a train, and there's something about the sound of the wheels and then the whistle, which you hear.
Speeding along the Canadian prairies.
Yeah.
And I finish it with, ooh, the sound of the whistle in the night, or something like that.
Yeah. And I thought, is there any? Woo-hoo. Yeah, and that's the sound I love when I'm in my bed at home. It makes me feel good. But to be on the train where you hear it and then I have only done that once in my life, and I was a kid, and it stays with me.
Yeah, it was a wonderful experience. And of course, somebody said, oh, I'll never take a trip like that to live in such a little tiny place. But really, it was a nice little challenge. And by the second day, it was rather fun being in this small cabin on a train where there were no flat surfaces. So anything you used, like my lipstick, had to go right back into my purse. It's a very economical way to spend a few days.
Well, you're saying if you had a single and you're in bed and you had to go to your little teeny-weeny bathroom, you couldn't get to the bathroom until you put the bed away. Yeah. Well, that would be a problem.
Yeah, that I wouldn't like.
But it would certainly be a test of how good your marriage is to live together.
Well, as you know, our marriage is a very
pretty solid.
Yeah, it's a good marriage. We have fun, and things like that just make us laugh.
Oh, gosh, how wonderful. So, You want to do what? Go ahead. If there's something did you want to talk about something particular? Because I saw you.
No.
I don't want. Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that we talk about the readings.
Book side.
The readings, yeah.
She's peddling books. Don't worry about it.
There are parties. There are going to be 2 wonderful
parties. Okay, invite everybody then. Go ahead.
Well, the first one is tomorrow evening from 7 to 9 at what we call the Carnegie. It's the Carnegie Free Library and Music Hall in Carnegie. And Maggie Smith, who's the wonderful executive director over there, heard about the book, and she said, why don't we do something? So I thought, well, that's fine with me, and that's how that one came about. And the second one was the idea of 2 wonderful women who are friends of Lynn. I wouldn't know them if it weren't for Lynn, over in the other side of town.
The East End.
The East End of town, and that's going to be at the Mendelssohn Gallery on Ellsworth Avenue on Sunday from 5 to 7. And my gratitude towards all of these people who are helping, and Steve Mendelssohn for offering to let us use his gallery.
You know what's funny is the guests we had before you came on the show were part of the ACLU lawsuit, and they have a big opening and benefit tomorrow night at the Mendelssohn Gallery. God bless him. Steve Mendelssohn, God bless you. Those are all things that he does to volunteer his wonderful space and time, and he deserves great credit for it.
And I should say that $1 of every book sold at these events is going to go to the Greater Pittsburgh Literacy Council,
wonderful,
which is an organization that I've supported for many decades.
Me too. Wonderful. My audience might be interested to know that you were a fan of Doug Hirth's.
I was.
And a more unlikely duo I cannot imagine. I'm serious.
Then Doug
you
Hirth
and Doug. I mean, Doug and you are so proper, and Doug was so improper in every. Why? But you're a talk radio fan.
Well, yeah, I am. I have a chapter here called "Still Listening," which you yourself are in.
I know.
You're
I got in the
this
book,
chapter,
and thank you for telling people where they can find me.
Yeah. Well,
what about Doug? Didn't you and Doug get in some kind of snit once?
I don't remember.
Oh, really?
Do you remember?
No, I vaguely remember you telling me about maybe you called and said something or wrote him a letter and he...
because Doug couldn't take criticism of any kind.
No, right.
Of any kind. But I felt bad. First of all, that those days when you and Doug were on that station were like the golden age of talk radio in Pittsburgh.
I agree.
Which has gone and left us. And, of course, people who were listeners remembered Doug's and your good friend Lawrence Gaines, who was so talented and so funny and made the show a standout with his funny drop-ins and his ability to imitate. And he was a good friend of Doug's. And when the station went belly up or they changed the format, Doug was at a loss. And it wasn't too long before he passed away. I think Lawrence passed away, and I think that did it for Doug. I say in the book that I really think that Doug died of a broken heart. And I sometimes, you know how you have guilt when somebody you know does away with themselves. And I thought, couldn't we have done something? All of us who loved Doug.
I understand. Yeah. Absolutely. And, Lawrence tried mightily to get Doug back in. He pointed to me, he said, look what Lynn is doing. You can do something like that. We can get you to do it. And Doug was he was many things. He was also stubborn. And he only knew what he knew. And that was what he wanted. And anyone who knows Doug, who knew him well, knows that what you say is absolutely true. That station killed him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay, that's a horrible note on which we got to get something. I was reading one last night, and you said something about, I can't even remember what the piece was, and you said something about she got a Stromberg Carlson TV. I never heard of that.
Well, because you're a little younger than I am.
What do you mean?
But as I think I say in the piece, it was like the Cadillac of television
I never
sets.
heard of one.
Well,
Stromberg
Carlson. Back in the 50s.
Yeah, I was around in the 50s.
Well, maybe they didn't have them in Green Bay.
Green Bay.
Green Bay?
You who like schwas, get things right. Green Bay. Get the accent on the right syllable.
Your young man over there
he's saying, oh, God, get these two women out of here. Get me out of here.
Well, I'm used to hearing the young lady giggling.
That's Jess. Jess took the day off, and that much to poor Carlos. So...
but thank you for letting me talk about this and for talking about all of these things. You know, I didn't say that Bob Crone at the Post-Gazette really got me rolling when he invited me to write a series for the Post-Gazette called Symphony Diary from a European Tour in 1994. And then it just kind of took off from there. Everything I submitted to the Post-Gazette, they published. And all of that gave me more confidence.
Yes.
And so I just cranked
off you went.
Yeah.
Well, the book. Where can people get the book if they can't get to one of the signings?
Certainly, they can get it on. They can get it on Amazon.
Okay.
Either as a download or a hard copy, paperback.
Oh, I thought what was funny about she has a piece in here in which she says, I need to have a book. I read constantly. I need to feel a book in my hands. I need to smell the pages. I need the tactile sensation. And then, of course, at the end, she puts a little addendum on, which is, since I wrote that piece,
I've read
what do you
34
have?
books.
Well, you have a Kindle, a this, a that, an iPad,
and
a this and that. Yeah, right. So, anyway, the book again is In One Era and Out the Other. These are just little snippets from this wonderful brain and wonderful person.
There's a subtitle, Essays on Contemporary Life. You can find my book if you just put in the first part. But do you remember Sam Levinson?
Of course.
Well, in 1973, he wrote a book called In One Era and Out the Other.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Did you know that and ripped it off?
Well, no, I didn't rip it off. You know, I could write something called Gone with the Wind. But But
okay.
I thought
But don't get Sam Levinson's book. Get
a book written so long ago.
Yeah. Patricia Prattis Jennings. You know what's funny? My son had a friend in school whose name was Sam Levinson. And I said to him once, I said, I can't believe your parents, isn't that funny? He and his parents never heard of Sam Levinson, so they didn't know that was a comedian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, listen, the fellow who wrote the foreword to my book, and I say I published a book. I won't say I wrote a book, but I published a book. He's never heard of Sam Levinson because when he went online trying to find the book, he said there was this guy who was a comedian or something. And unless he was speaking tongue-in-cheek, he never heard of Sam Levinson. Well, and his name is Rosenberg, and he's in his mid-50s.
Oh, so you think a Jew should know a Jew?
Well,
yeah,
I know Sam Levinson.
Well, right.
Then I think everybody should know Sam Levinson.
I'm agreeing with you. Patricia Prattis Jennings, a Pittsburgh treasurer, and this is just a wonderful book. I hate to call it a bathroom book, but it could be.
Yes, or a cup of tea book.
Okay, cup of tea sounds much
more genteel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you. So, go meet her, listen to her, see her at the book signings.
And we're going to have nice music. Phil Salvato and Haywood Vincent are going to be playing at both events, and they are terrific. We have to have music for ambience.
Good heavens, yes you do. She always does it right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Tomorrow, Mr. Sokolowski will join us. You have a wonderful day.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.